We're back. No BitConnect for today. So another rebuttal video, this time by the beloved Breaking Points. Really like this this news show, American news show, and let's dive into it now.
Krystal, what are you taking a look at?
Well,
I'll ask you one last question. You don't like Bitcoin? You wouldn't invest in Bitcoin? Do you invest in the stock market at this moment?
So not at this moment. I think it's high. So I have not invested in the stock market at this moment. I have in the past, but I have not at this moment. I think it's high. Okay. Bitcoin, it just seems like a scam. I was surprised. You know, with us, it was at 6,000 and much lower. I don't like it because it's another currency competing against the dollar. Essentially, it's a currency competing against the dollar. I want the dollar to be the currency of the world. That's what I've always said.
So that was former President Trump in 2021 telling Fox Business that Bitcoin seems like a scam and voicing concern it could undermine the dollar. My, what a little time a few $100 million in campaign contributions can do to change your mind. Because now, after receiving the backing of a bunch of crypto-aligned billionaires and wealthy individuals, including Elon Musk, Trump is backing a plan to funnel American taxpayer assets into a scheme to further enrich his coterie of oligarchs through a strategic Bitcoin reserve. In a conversation with Jim Cramer at the New York Stock Exchange, Trump recently confirmed that plan to throw the weight of the U.S. government behind Bitcoin, placing the volatile speculative asset on the same level as gold and as oil. So how exactly would this all work? Well, Senator Cynthia Lummis, herself a significant Bitcoin investor, has become...
Yeah, so I'm going to let her repeat it as well. Lummis has been, she's been on the forefront of this as well. There's a bunch of senators who are in the forefront of this. Fit 21 was a bill that got passed both the House and the Senate, but got vetoed by Biden. But passed with the Democrat support as well. And now we're seeing this happen. Trump was in the Bitcoin conference in October, saying that he was going to, create a strategic stockpile. Some people are calling it reserves. People are calling it stockpile. Might be a little bit different here, but Senator Lummis from Wyoming, I believe, she has the plan to basically have the U.S. buy its way up to, I think it's like 200,000 Bitcoin or something. It's going to be obviously trillions of dollars by the time they're done doing that.
Crypto's top proponent in Washington has sketched out potential details. Basically, in her view, they could pull some creative accounting with the nation's gold reserves. Those reserves would be marked to current market value. The resulting paper gains would be used to finance bulk Bitcoin purchases to the tune of $200,000 a year for 5 straight years. As the Financial Times explains, today, the U.S. government's gold is valued at a book cost of $42.22 an ounce, making it worth $11 billion. At current market prices, it would be worth over $650 billion. So, if we've understood correctly, Federal Reserve banks would be required to remit around $640 billion to the U.S. Treasury, and the Treasury could use those funds to buy Bitcoin. Now, This is, on its face, a plan for extraordinary plundering of the public purse, which would result in perhaps the largest upward transfer of wealth in history, given that it would primarily be a handful of Bitcoin whales who stand to benefit. Because as unequal as our normal financial system is, and it is plenty unequal, the crypto world is vastly more unequal.
I guess there's a few things to say here. One is that Bitcoin's been an open network that's been operated that anyone could have joined for the past 15 years. So, and you could have joined it from anywhere around the world. We're not even talking about Americans. So in some way, it has been very, very open, at least. At minimum, it's been very, very open. And that promise has been true. And even till today, like people around the world, if they see America is going to make this big move, they can opt to move their money from their current currency or from their current savings or from whatever assets they own into Bitcoin if they would like to do that. So that the promise of it being radically open and permissionless is still true. I think, again, I will always keep saying this, the node centralization is probably the biggest issue for Bitcoin. She's going to talk about accounts having different amounts of wealth on them. I mean, let's be honest here. Some of the OG accounts have not moved their coins. Satoshi is the biggest owner of coins still, hasn't moved any of the tokens for a very long time. Some of these people might honestly have lost or been dead. They're either dead or they've lost their keys. A lot of original people lost their money. So there is hundreds of Bitcoins in certain wallets, maybe even more, that are lost to time at this point. So this statistic that the majority of crypto is owned by a very few, and that, you know, many of the wallets don't move around the Bitcoin, it can be explained to some extent by literally historical wallets. When the price of this stuff was 10 cents, people were gifting each other Bitcoin and they were just like losing their wallet. Like this shows how far we've come. I just want everyone to understand this. There is a bunch of Bitcoin that will never is lost to time and will never be used on the network ever, because people didn't treat it seriously when it was at 1 cent, 10 cents, $1, $2, right? We would all be rich right now if we all treated it serious. The vast majority of people did not treat it as a serious thing to hold on to. When you're talking about Bitcoin, I've said this before, Bitcoin is a misnomer. It's an abstraction. It's a way of rounding up. There aren't actually Bitcoins on the Bitcoin network. There are Satoshis, and there are like, 10, 100 quadrillion Satoshis. So there's a lot. There's still a lot of Satoshis left for people to use, to buy, to own. Talking about 21 million Bitcoins is a shortcut, because you wouldn't want to talk about like, yeah, I put $10,000 into Bitcoin, so I have blah 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 blah, zero zero zero. How many Satoshis are we talking about here? But you can say I have 0.1 Bitcoin or whatever. Bitcoin has been a useful abstraction, but it's a misnomer to talk about actually Bitcoins on the Bitcoin network. So I think there's a bit of a mistake here when they're talking about where the value is on the network. But I will agree with her next point, which is that the majority of people own the wealth, and this is true in kind of every society.
According to the National Bureau of Economic Research, the top 0.01% of Bitcoin holders control 27% of all Bitcoin in circulation. The top 2% of all wallets hold over 90% of all Bitcoin. South Africa, which is considered the most unequal country in the world and has a Gini coefficient of somewhere around 0.63, that pales in comparison to that of Bitcoin, which is estimated to be around 0.88. Now, the presence of a small group of whales means, of course, that a handful of mega wealthy investors stands to benefit from the US government showing up with a virtually unlimited checkbook to buy up Bitcoin. And it also means that the price of Bitcoin, which has little actual value except as a high-tech poker chip, can be easily manipulated by a relatively small group of people. Doesn't seem to me like we should be funneling trillions into an asset that can be easily and maliciously manipulated.
It's kind of, I think is kind of a choose your poison scenario. I think what she's saying is correct. So there are concerns. Bitcoin is just a technology. There still are people who are very corruptible and very cynical behind every technology, and so this is a big concern. This is not going to be one that we're going to get out of. What I will say as well is the fiat system, from what I understand it, where they went off the gold standard in 71 with Nixon, and they've since made this debt money enslavement system where we're essentially printing out debt over and over again. You're incentivized to go into debt because the currency is constantly being devalued and the assets are going up, so you're constantly chasing them. Might as well go into debt today with today's dollars and pay them back 10 years down the line with much cheaper tomorrow's dollars, right? This is the system that we're in. In that system, there are actors, specifically the banks, who profit greatly. And the new money that's being created, the closer you are to the source of the wealth, the creation of that money, the more enriched you are, because the market doesn't have a chance to understand that there's more dollars chasing the same services and goods. This is called the Cantillon effect. So this idea that I just have a hard time with the left saying that crypto is horrible, when it's like our current system is horrible as well, right? This is not an excuse to say that Bitcoin is therefore acceptable. These issues with Bitcoin, specifically the wealth disparity in Bitcoin, is a massive problem. What I will say is that on the Bitcoin network, you can still join in. You could put $100 in today. You could start buying Satoshis. You don't need to buy a Bitcoin. I think it's a misnomer in everyone's head. People can still have the freedom to actually move their money out of the fiat world and into Bitcoin. This is a massive win for society. If we institutionalize Bitcoin, just like any technology, the leaders in that technology, the people who have captured the market the most, are going to benefit. And that's going to be, unfortunately, that's the sad result. But there's no way around this. And in industry, the people who win wars, like America came out of World War II the best looking out of pretty much every single nation. The people who win on technological battles, they end up dictating the rules of the game, and they end up profiting the most. I don't know how we're going to get out of that system. And Bitcoin is another thing that is limited and constrained by this very real outcome of human cooperation and human engagement.
Now, you may have heard the crypto libertarian propaganda that the great thing about these coins is that they fly free of any government manipulation, that they represent some kind of new financial frontier, a wild west. Fortune favors the brave, all of that. So you might wonder why these Bitcoin whales would want Uncle Sam meddling in their libertarian frontier currency. Well, as Ryan Cooper at the American Prospect explains, the truth is these crypto whales have a pretty major issue on their hands, which is, quote, the Bitcoin market is exceptionally illiquid.
I just want to mention this as well. Like what she's going to get into here, it is very ironic. So it's, look, Bitcoin, basically what she's going to say is Bitcoin is worth so much right now that if everyone wanted to move out of the Bitcoin system into fiat, they wanted to actualize their Bitcoin gains into fiat currency, which again is a non-starter for a lot of people who are in crypto. They have an understanding that fiat is actually to be avoided. But these people who are looking at, like, crypto is not real money. Real money, fiat money is real money, right? Like, and the assets that belong that you can purchase with fiat, that's real money. That's real stuff. Everyone desires this. No one actually desires Bitcoin for what it actually is. It's kind of like this digital competitor, a final settlement to gold. No one gives a shit about that. They really are just getting into Bitcoin so they can get more fiat. So if you have a very cynical view and a very common view of Bitcoin, then of course you will come to this conclusion. Everyone would like to cash out at one point. The only people who owning Bitcoin are assuming that greater fools, the greater fools theory, greater fools will come in and they will buy the Bitcoin from you. So you need more and more people to dunk on, because eventually, again, like the point is not to own Bitcoin. The point is to dunk on people and destroy people and to get fiat currency. This is the perspective that they're coming from. In that perspective, because Bitcoin has done so well over the past 15 years, it's done so insanely well that it's worth so much now. It's worth $2 trillion, almost $3 trillion. That if people were to try to pull out all the money at once now, they would collapse the entire thing. And so it's going to take a lot of money to stabilize that. Now, I want to make this clear as well. This has always been true of Bitcoin. So when it went from 10 cents to $1, that was already a huge. When it went from 1 penny to $1, it was 100x gains, right? There were whales at that time as well. So the point that she's making was true many times in Bitcoin's history. The price went up exceptionally. There were whales, and there was an amount of dunking on people that happened. And that's why we see these big crashes and big liquidation events. People do get destroyed. People do act as exit liquidity. But if we zoom out of any of recency bias with Bitcoin, what we've seen right now, this is not me, my opinion, this is true. Every time we get a crash, 80%, 85% dip, we come up, we set new higher highs and new higher lows. So this existential risk that she has, where it's like the whales who have most of the money and there's new people coming in and they're going to feed off of them. This is, in a way, we know this for the past 15 years. The media has been obsessed with calling out how bad Bitcoin is now, how much of a scam it is, and pointing out, look, oh, there's a crash. Look at these people lost their money. Specifically, when exchanges fail. But let's just say the Bitcoin network crashes, like the price crashes by a lot. This has happened multiple times. So people have been dunked on, but they've survived. And again, the proposition so far has been, and I can't guarantee this will be true in the future, if you've held onto your Bitcoin, you've done pretty well. It'll crash again in the future, and everyone will be focused on the crash, and there'll be a whole bunch of FOMO and fear and all this panic. And then it will probably be true in the future again a few years later. Maybe it crashes in 2026, 2025, 2026. 2029, all of a sudden people are talking about Bitcoin again because it's at a new high. This is going to continue to happen over and over again. There's a recency bias in what she's saying. She's not taking the full history of Bitcoin. Again, this problem where there's a majority of whales who at any point in time can pull out their gains and dunk on the people who are coming in has always been true of Bitcoin. And to some extent, each crash that we've seen has been indicative of that happening. And it still hasn't stopped the network. So when an administration or a country, let's not talk about America, let's talk about El Salvador, let's talk about Bhutan, let's talk about even Russia's talking more about it. They're warming up to it. And different states, like in Texas, they're talking about doing it just on their own. This is not related to Trump. Or in Vancouver, the mayor is talking about getting onto Bitcoin. They're not talking about it because Trump is corrupted and they want to. El Salvador did not buy into Bitcoin in 2021 or 2020 before Trump tried to run again as a pro-Bitcoin president, because Trump was earning money to run as a pro-Bitcoin president. He didn't even announce his candidacy, right? Biden had just started his term, basically. The fact that there's a mayor in Vancouver talking about it, it's not because of Trump receiving money from the crypto industry and the plan to bail out people at the American taxpayer expense that he's interested. The country of Bhutan is not interested in Bitcoin because Trump is going to bail out a bunch of people, a bunch of oligarchs, basically. Everyone is interested in this asset, not just because America. This is a very America-centric. Bitcoin has grown in spite of Gary Gensler and the SEC going after it and try to shut it down. It has unstoppably grown. And that's because what these people don't understand, and I'm sorry, Krystal, she doesn't understand this either, there's a fundamental use case around crypto that all these people are looking into and they're interested. The use case, and I've covered it many times already, but the use case is, to put it clearly, currency is being devalued. The US dollar has lost 99% purchasing power compared to gold over a 100-year period. The US debt has gone up $1 trillion a day now, sitting at 36 trillion, waiting to get to 37 trillion soon. There is a loss of confidence in fiat currency, and it's because it can be created out of thin air as debt and leveraged against future generations. And people don't know the story, but they're feeling their purchasing power going away. They're becoming cynical, and they're deciding to take a risk with something new. They don't quite understand how Bitcoin might address this. And again, I've covered that in other videos. But they are here for that ride. This is not because Trump was paid by the crypto industry. If you listen to what you're saying too, the crypto industry has gotten big enough so that it could do the corrupt political maneuvering that has been done by all sorts of different agencies, including traditional finance, including the banking sector, creating lobbyists, buying out politicians. Crypto has become big enough by definition without Trump having been in office, with an antithetical regime in the Biden administration towards it, with being unregulated and dismissed and laughed at. It's become so big that there are now billions and billions of dollars owned by various people who are able to spend on getting crypto regulated, on getting crypto supported. So you have to look at what you're saying is like, why has this thing grown to such a degree that it could buy out Trump, assuming your theory is true? Why has it grown to such a degree that other countries who have no relationship to America, who didn't even know about this news, are starting to get interested in Bitcoin and crypto? There's something else that's gone on. It's not just the story. America is not the only country on the planet.
The last 24 hours saw roughly a piddling 660,000 transactions in Bitcoin, and something like 70% of Bitcoins have not moved at all in at least a year. That is made worse by how expensive and slow Bitcoin transactions are. By way of comparison, Amazon, which has a similar market capitalization, has seen about 40 million daily trades of its stocks over the last few days.
Again, I think a lot of people who own Bitcoin, including myself, there's no reason to try to move or trade your Bitcoin. That's not the point. It's like owning a virtual version of gold. Like if I have gold sitting in my house and I believe that the American dollar is going to be bleeding against my gold, and if I believe that my gold actually magically, because gold doesn't actually do this, it does inflate over time, but if I believe my gold is actually going to outperform other stocks, it's going to, like, owning my gold, having it sitting there is actually outperforming stocks. I'm going to be able to buy more houses with it. There's this nice chart in like 2013, you would take like 10 or like 100 Bitcoin to buy a house. And then it was like, 2017, it's like, well, you're going to take like 10 Bitcoin to buy a house. And now it's like 1.5 Bitcoin. The price of houses is going down relative to Bitcoin. Why would I trade my Bitcoin? This is not the Amazon stock. You're trying to get in, you're trying to get out, you're trying to make moves, you're trying to sell for tax reasons. That's why the stock is moving. Like, you fundamentally misunderstand what Bitcoin is. And because you can't understand why the average person who holds Bitcoin is not moving, trading it a bunch. They'll trade other meme coins, they'll do it, but Bitcoin is not that type of asset. If you think of real money as being fiat currency, if you want to price Bitcoin in fiat, if you think of real assets as being not Bitcoin, but houses or vacations or cars, anything you want, you cannot deny the fact that so far Bitcoin has gone up astoundingly relative to all of these things. And so when you look at the average Bitcoiner, they're not guaranteed that this will continue in the future. But if you look at them, who understands this data and understands a little bit about the philosophy of money and monetary theory, they understand it's worth just holding on to this thing. Why would you give it up? If I'm going to be able to buy a house with 0.5 Bitcoin in the next, let's say, 8 years, why am I going to sell my Bitcoin today? What gains am I trying to make? What risk am I taking there? Why would I give up on something that is relatively cheap right now for what it could be in the future? To buy what? to buy these assets that to get it into US dollars, that's going to be deflated away. To buy real estate that I have to pay taxes on, and I have to keep with upkeep, I have to keep cleaning it, maintaining it. Why would I trade this away? Again, this is radical the way I'm talking about Bitcoin, but this is the Bitcoin maximalist position. If you don't understand this position, if you think that Bitcoin's not real money and that the real money is fiat money, which is a joke to crypto community and Bitcoiners, you will not understand why they're doing this behavior. And you will leave your critiques as such, and you will say that Bitcoin needs a bailout. The billionaires have now accrued, again, magically they've accrued, billions of dollars on this network, because it's grown without the U.S. being involved and without Trump, subsidizing them. They've made it's so big now. They need the American government to come in. No, the Bitcoin has never needed the American government to grow from 1 cent to $100,000, or if you want to do before Trump's inauguration, $75,000, whatever. Bitcoin community didn't need that. This is not about America. I'm sorry.
As Ryan goes on to explain, that means that in order for large bag holders to cash out without totally crashing the market, they would have to lure an unfathomably large number of new crypto suckers into what is at bottom.
And so again, I have to push this point again. What they're saying is that it's gotten so big, the market, again, without America and without Trump, without the intervention, with actually an America that was against it, it's gotten so big. And there might be reasons for that. There might be some reasons you might want to investigate and try to explain that. But if the only explanation you have is because of the greater fool theory, it's become so big because people are so stupid and so greedy. It's somehow gone from, basically worth nothing or worth a penny to $100,000. It's gotten so big, and everyone knows it's a scam and it's worth nothing, that when the smart money tries to liquidate their Bitcoin, they're going to need a lot more, useful idiots. They're going to need a lot more stupid people to come in, greedy people to come in, the greater fool theory. We're going to need a lot more fools to come in to sell it to. So let's cook up a plan. Okay, why don't we sell it to the American people? This is not what's happening. What I'm saying is that this story doesn't take into account Bitcoin's movement from a penny to $75,000 before any of this is happening. If you look at it, rationally, scientifically, if you look at the data that's come in, if you don't just think of the recency bias, what's happening now with the Trump administration, if you look at crypto's astounding growth over the past 15 years, unbelievable, and you try to understand the philosophy of money that is behind it, then maybe you can understand what these people are doing, these senators are doing, is potentially not a bailout on scam money to get real money, to get the pack. It's actually to invite the American taxpayers in to be on the forefront of what has been an unheard of asset class and appreciation over the past 15 years. Is it guaranteed to continue? No. Is there risk? There is. Is there risk in continuing with the fiat currency system where the BRICS nations are trying to tap out, say thank you, no thank you, where the U.S. might be losing its rating as internationally as a safe place to store money because the debt is becoming so high? Is it worth staying inside of that system and betting on that system? It might be worth checking out of that system and seeing what else can happen. And by the way, if the U.S. takes the lead on this, USD stablecoin is already the number one stablecoin by far. USDT and USDC are the number one stablecoins by far in crypto. America has the ability to cement its dollar as the stable dollar for this new digital era in crypto. And if it does that, USDT is already the 16th highest purchaser of sovereign debt, US treasuries, to back up its currency. It buys debt to back up its currency. It's the 16th biggest. It can become near the top, if not the top buyer. So the American economy can float by and continue to have this amazingly strong dollar because it's going to become the reserve currency of the entire digital infrastructure. America has that opportunity. I'm not saying that it's guaranteed. I'm not saying it's not without risk. I'm just saying that's an opportunity America has right now. There are reasons to believe that that opportunity is viable. And there's some people in America who are proposing to take a risk and push in that direction because the current system is unsustainable. And everyone knows that. And even this show, which I love so much, Breaking Points, talks about it ad nauseum. So I don't understand why you're framing it. It's like you've done so little research on the matter that you've listened to the rhetoric that's happened over the past 15 years. It's the greater fool theory. Everyone's stupid. It's all greed. It's all scams. That you're fundamentally missing the point. And so you can't engage with the argument in a useful way. You can't actually express yourself usefully because you've strawmanned your opponents. You've drawn them as its stick figures, and then you're pummeling them down with arguments that you think are very effective. It's unfortunate.
Giant Ponzi scheme. So they came up with a much easier plan, which was to funnel hundreds of millions of dollars into Trump's campaign, along with many other Washington politicians besides of both parties, so that all U.S. taxpayers could be conscripted into the role of, in Ryan's words, sacrificial lambs to a digital asset slaughterhouse.
Just to be sure too, like, from what I understand, Coinbase, Kraken, by these big exchanges, and I'm not saying they're not without their shortcomings, and there's been a lot of scams. They have tried their best to cozy up to the different regimes to get clarity on regulation. This is what I understand. It's, of course, there's a crypto bias, but like, please do research this. They have tried their best to ask, how can we regulate legally in this country? How can we more integrate with the system? How can we get the economy working where we have like basically fractionalized ownership and unlimited liquidity, unlimited denominations with final settlement? Like, this could be an astounding thing for any economy to have, like settling at this basically at the speed of light for whatever fees, whether you're using Bitcoin or a cheaper network like Arbitrum, a layer 2 on ETH. If what crypto is offering pans out, and we're still in the early days, you could have fractionalized ownership 24/7, 20 hours, 24/7 markets, globally accessible, and you could use it with the US dollar backing it. If that pans out, this is a huge thing that America could be on the front lines of. And without that picture, again, these guys they're punching at ghosts basically. Like, this is such a bad report, I would say, from Breaking Point.
Effectively, the U.S. taxpayer will be forced to serve as the useful idiot, the hapless bottom tier of the pyramid scheme, allowing the whales to convert their illiquid digital tokens into cold hard cash while we get stuck with the bill.
So again, this assumes too, very immodestly, like, I'm assuming they zoomed out a bit. Like, if you understand Bitcoin's history, it's only 15 years, but very immodestly what you're saying is, it's gone up on a logarithmic scale. Even it's gone up exponentially, like this, logarithmically, this insane amount of money. It's gone up. And it's crashed down, but then it's got a new high. It crashed down, it's got a new high. And this is the final cycle. It'll never do that again. The American taxpayers are going to come in. They're going to be on the hook. There'll be the final explosion, the final dunk on the retail investors, the final exit liquidity, and then the whole thing will crash. Again, you're saying that even though it's gone through massive crashes, it's always survived. You know that this time it's going to crash and go down forever. And it could. I don't know the future. There are reasons why Bitcoin could fail. I'm not saying it's infallible. All I'm saying is that you're very confident that this will be like the final kind of bull run, and then everyone will pull out and the whole thing will crash. The other side of the story, again, the one that's less anti-crypto, would be like, America's going to get in first to what will be a place that a lot of nations will like to be in, and even if it does crash, and it will, it'll have corrections, like massive. It's very volatile. It'll probably go up again, and America will be in the green. And if they go in the way that they're talking about, they'll be really in the fucking green. I mean, they will be able to essentially pay off their $37 trillion of debt, or what will be 40 or even $45 trillion debt by the time they're done this big plan. And they're going to risk under $1 trillion to potentially pay off $30 trillion. Let's say not the full thing, but a huge chunk of their debt. That is an insane swing, and it might be worth the risk. But again, if you only see it as Bitcoin's not real money, fiat currency, which is actually just arbitrary money, it literally means by arbitrary order fiat. That's the real money. The real money that we keep inflating over and over again, that has no basis to it, that is running up debts in, whether you're in Australia or you're in the UK or you're in Canada or you're in America, just running up these debts, no way to pay it off, leveraging it onto the future as debt, loading it up as debt for the future to pay off. This insanity. That's the system that's actually better. That's the real money. No, there's people who are in crypto who are saying that's not the real money. That's not holding its value. That's not where we should be putting our cash. And there might be another asset that's actually outperformed every other asset in the history of the world so far, and that is, Bitcoin specifically.
Now, this oligarch thievery is only the beginning of the problems with the idea, however. A Bitcoin strategic reserve means funneling trillions into a famously volatile asset. In 2021 alone, Bitcoin surged from $30,000 a coin to $69,000 a coin before crashing back down to $30,000. The idea...
Yeah. And then and where did it start? It started from pennies, and then it crashed. And like, this is again, like, let's not have recency bias here. Look at the entire thing move that what crypto's done so far. You can make the case this will be the last one. The American taxpayers will be the last one to eat, basically to eat shit, to like get dunked on, to be exit liquidity. But that's a pretty strong claim. Bitcoin has crashed multiple times. It's corrected. It's always set higher highs and higher lows. If you're going to say this is the last time, you better have some reasons why you believe that.
Of setting up a strategic reserve with an asset that can lose half its value in a matter of weeks is truly insane.
Again, like, this is not a debatable point. It can lose half of its value in a matter of weeks, if not months. But this is not the proposition. The proposition is that this is a radical, volatile asset class that cannot be priced appropriately by anyone, and is finding new higher prices astoundingly every time we go through this kind of like boom bust cycles, and we don't know where it will end up. And right now it's at about $3 trillion USD market cap. Gold is at 17, and it's starting to knock on the door. It's overcome silver. It's overcome Saudi oil. It might even overcome Microsoft and Amazon this bull run. It could get close to the gold's market cap this bull run or next bull run. The next cycle? Who knows? No one can price this thing correctly because it's insane. Because it's a play on the theory of money, and it's not something. It's a technological play on the theory of money. We've never seen this before. It could fail, but also right now it's going up so high, and it's constantly being reset, and it's going up high, but it's still finding it's still in price discovery apparently. And some people on the argument, specifically these senators, I don't think Trump's very informed on it at all. I don't think that he's very informed on a lot of things, but the amount of politicians who have become informed, people outside of America, this is not just Americans, this is you have Vladimir Putin saying this is inevitable, right? I'm not a fan of Russia, the authoritarian regime. I'm not a fanboy of Xi Jinping's China, but these BRIC nations are starting to say, hey, instead of building out our own system, Bitcoin already exists. This thing is real, and it's inevitable, and it cannot be denied. Some people in the crypto community and some of these senators are seeing this now. Maybe they're seeing it because lobbyists have come and made them see the light, and maybe you can call it brainwashing. I don't know. America has a lobbyist system. Seemingly everyone does. They try to get what they want out of politicians. This is no different. I don't think it's a good thing. But I'm just saying here, although people will become famously wealthy, there is a non-0% chance, and I would actually say, if you look at the data, a fair chance that this could not be a big Ponzi scheme and can actually be something where America could be the leader in. That would help explain the last 15 years, which again has nothing to do with Trump's presidency.
And contrary to Bitcoin lore, that it could serve as a significant store of value and function in effect as a currency, in reality it has been nothing more than a speculative and non-productive asset. Somewhere around 20% of the whole market has been lost for good. The primary use outside of speculation appears to be mostly for money laundering, drug dealing, and human trafficking. Why should the US government spend real money on a digital casino instead of, I don't know, healthcare, education, infrastructure? The amount of risk involved is honestly wild, and to be truthful, it's only escalating. In fact, the advance of quantum computers has raised concerns among crypto enthusiasts that these unfathomably powerful computers could be used to crack the blockchain encryption on which crypto...
Yeah, and again, like, this is not untrue, but this was part of the FUD, the fear of 2017. So I think it's kind of interesting too, like being into crypto for 8 years now and following this market and the ups and the downs. They were talking about making quantum physics, quantum resistant crypto and blockchains for quite some time. And it is, as a counterpoint to what she's saying, the Bitcoin network can be updated. There's a bunch of developers and a bunch of organizations and miners who have voting power basically on the Bitcoin network and can collectively vote to make it quantum resistant if that's required, which it probably will be in the future. So it's not like a death nail in the coffin. It's not like the final bullet for Bitcoin, the final send off. This has been something that's been talked about. It's been talked about as something to be fearful of for many, many years. We're getting closer to quantum supremacy. At some point we will reach it. Who knows when? But this is another thing in the news that keeps coming up over and over again. It's like a zombie that won't die.
Security relies. Google, you may have heard this, recently announced that its quantum computer Willow successfully completed a problem that would take current supercomputers more years to solve than the entire age of the universe. That breakthrough alone created enough fear in the crypto markets that it sparked a $1.7 billion digital asset sell-off. There's also a risk that as technology advances, Bitcoin just simply becomes obsolete, surpassed by superior technologies that evolve in the space.
This is again like so the quantum point as well as the better blockchains have been part of the fear with Bitcoin, along with its using up too much energy since at least 2017. I've heard them all. Bitcoin has not been replaced and is on track actually to not be replaced for a long time. It could always be replaced. That's part of the risk, but it's like we have to understand that these arguments have been made. If in other words, to think about it differently, if we were in the universe where Bitcoin would be replaced by better technology, there are supposedly better technologies that have been created, but it hasn't been replaced. The reason why it hasn't been replaced is because it's a battle-tested 15-year blockchain based off of proof of work that's the most secure the world has ever seen ever. It's the most secure piece of technology or network that the world has ever seen, period. It solves something fundamental, not just about digital scarcity, but about validation, trustworthiness, authorization, digital property scarcity, digital property ownership, and like wealth transactions. It solves something fundamental that we haven't been able to solve in all of our years. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Effectively rendering this particular scheme worthless. After all, there is nothing particularly special or durable about Bitcoin. It was just the first mover in the field and is the most well known.
Yeah, so again, like this is, again, if you think about what you're saying, and it's all true, Bitcoin's not particularly special. It's been hard forked like multiple times by different projects. Litecoin is a clone of it. Dogecoin was another clone. They just modified a few variables to make it, cheaper, quicker. They include Dogecoin. They include a lot more of the foundational unit denominations than the initial Bitcoin network Satoshis. It's already been done. This hasn't affected Bitcoin. We have to understand like some of the things that are being said. The quantum one is, of course, developing. I mean, it's been said in the past, but as quantum computers get better, the question will remain. It will always linger. Energy consumption and efficiency will always linger, although I'm hearing less about it now for some reason. It's interesting. And it's also interesting how AI is going to be using a shit ton of energy and will soon overtake crypto for energy usage, but I'm not seeing anyone say shut down AI because of the energy usage. It's like, no, we understand AI is useful, so obviously we're not going to shut down. Crypto, I don't understand why it's useful, so it should be shut down. It's like, well, look, you don't understand why it's useful, but there's still $2 trillion, almost $3 trillion locked in that network, so maybe you should try to learn why it might be useful. But what I'm saying is we've heard all of these arguments before. We've heard them all before, heard them all multiple times, and they're not bad arguments. My point here is not that they're bad arguments. My point is that all of these arguments have existed. They've been just as persuasive, if not more, with the quantum computing one than they have been. But that hasn't stopped Bitcoin. If all of these arguments were effective, were really showing existential problems for the Bitcoin network, wouldn't you assume that after it crashes once, twice, three times, however many, it wouldn't come back up? It wouldn't come back up like a phoenix rising from the dead and set new all-time highs? You would not expect that to happen if all of these things that you're saying are true. And again, you're left, if you're on this part of the argument, like Krystal is here, you're left with saying there's only one thing you can say. There's just more and more dumb idiots. There's more and more, the way I'm going to explain this, because everything that I'm saying is true about crypto. It's a waste. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's a waste of energy. All it does is enrich and ingratiate the wealthy. It doesn't do anything. Fiat currency is much better. You'd rather sell it and get into fiat currency. There's no value to it. If you believe this, the only thing you have left to explain the fact that it keeps going up, even after it crashes, the only thing you have left to explain, because everything that you're saying is true, right? So the only thing left to say is a greater fool. There are more and more stupid people, and there's more stupid people to get us to 3 trillion, and there'll be more stupid people to get us to 10 trillion, and I don't know, there'll be more stupid people to get us to 50 trillion if we get there, right? These people are not willing to re-examine their theory and potentially swap it out and potentially say, maybe I missed something, and that's very concerning.
Think of it this way. Of all the things the government could buy, of all the prices it could artificially boost, which is what this is, there is no good reason to pick Bitcoin outside of a desire to funnel trillions.
It's the best performing asset that the world's, I don't think, again, like, these two things can be true at the same time. It's the best performing asset of all time, which is correct. It's gone from pennies to $100,000, so that you haven't seen these returns anywhere else ever, especially in the span of 15 years. It's alien. And you can do your greater fools theory, where the only reason it's gotten bigger is because people are stupid and there's more and more greater fools. We can say both at the same time, but you can't deny, even with the greater fools theory, you can't deny we've battle tested greater fools for 15 years, and there seemingly is an endless number of more and more greater fools. So I'm saying, even if I accept what you're saying, there's the greater fools theory. We've tested this theory like, oh, well, it's at 10 cents. It can't get any higher, right? There's not stupid. Okay, well, crash won't come back. What? It's up $200. $200 for funny money, internet money, right? It's going to crash. It can never go, okay, it's at $5,000, $20,000. Okay, but it can't. Right? If you're saying that we're astounded that it keeps going because there's more stupid people, why would you assume it will stop all of a sudden? Why are you able to predict that it's going to stop soon? I'm just saying, I don't think this is the reason why anyone should go in on this. But if you assume what you're saying is true, there's seemingly more and more stupid people. Why wouldn't America take advantage of that then? Unless you think you can magically, like, you know that this is the time where we're not going to find more and more stupid people. If America's following the pattern that you, like, if your theory is that it's the greater fools theory, and we have 15 years track record of finding greater and greater fools, you might be able to make a lucid assertion that we're going to find another 15 years of greater and greater fools. At that point, you're an idiot for not taking maybe a risk in going in, especially if the risk is under $1 trillion to get $30 trillion later. It's not guaranteed, but you might be looking at this equation and going, hey, these numbers make sense. Now, I'm not saying that's the reason why Bitcoin's going up. I'm just saying that's what you're saying. And logically, if what you're saying is actually true, you have to also be saying it's going up because there's more and more stupid people, and I can predict when it's going to stop going up because there's no more stupid people left. And maybe you're saying that's it. The American taxpayer is the last one, and that's it. Could be. I don't know. Maybe are there other stupid people in there's other stupid countries? And I know the Americans like to say that they're like to make fun of each other sometimes and say that they're really dumb, depending on if you're just specifically, if you're speaking with the left wing American people. I understand that. Maybe there's other dumb fucks around the world as well. Maybe you could dunk on them as well, right? Like, maybe, you know, it never ends how many stupid people there are. So I'm just taking your theory and running with it.
To your campaign supporters. So basically, a Bitcoin strategic reserve is a world historic billionaire giveaway, puts trillions of taxpayer dollars at risk, and unlike reserves of physical goods, which can be kept secure through physical security, runs the risk of outright theft from high-tech hackers. What could possibly go wrong? As if that isn't enough, creating a Bitcoin strategic reserve is a massive step towards further integrating Bitcoin into the regular financial system. And this is one of the major projects of the incoming Trump administration, based on his statements and based on...
I think it's good. Again, the reason why people are so afraid of crypto is because it's been left unregulated. It's been left as an untouchable. The regimes have not, the administrations throughout the past 10 years have not wanted to touch it, have not wanted to integrate it, have not wanted to have conversations with Coinbase about how it can be legitimized. It was only through legal confrontation with courts, district courts in different states, saying that this thing is a commodity. We've looked into it technologically, we've looked into it philosophically, and we've decided that this is not a security. So the SEC can fuck off when it comes to Bitcoin. Without that intervention, and without millions of dollars being spent from the crypto community to push that point forward, we would never be where we are today.
Staffing decisions, a project that federal regulators in 2 new reports are already sounding the alarm over. So the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, they are warning that the increasingly common use of loans to finance crypto purchases has created a lot of exposure throughout the entire financial system. Meanwhile, the Office of Financial Research...
You know what's funny about that is that the fiat system is the system that incentivizes taking loans. The behavior of taking out loans and taking risk because your whole future is running away from you and the only way to catch up is to go gamble and to take debt, that is incentivized perfectly by the fiat system. Right? It's because because all the assets are inflating, because we're just allowing everyone to take out money all the time. We're injecting money, we're injecting liquidity, economic quantitative easing. Oh, 2008, the taxpayers will bail them out. Oh, COVID, okay, we'll just send out everyone checks and we'll give much of the returns. I mean, again, Krystal is the one who correctly has complained about this happening in COVID. Most of the tax rebates are for the rich. Trump gave tax rebates. Biden, the corporations are sucking up all the money. They're the ones who are being subsidized through this hardship in the economy, as it always will be. The fiat system created that. The regular financial system created that. And the fiat system is the one that asks us all to go into debt, all to over leverage on housing, like in the 2008 financial crisis, because you can't catch a break. You're always falling behind. But she knows this. So yes, leveraging and getting debt to go into crypto is crazy. I understand. And to some degree, I'm blameworthy of that as well. But we can't deny that the whole fiat system is one where you're incentivized to take out today's dollars and pay back tomorrow's dollars tomorrow, because all of your assets and all your cost of living is flying away from you. And by the way, your purchasing power is being moved over to the state and to other actors. It's not that it just goes away. It's a reorganization of the wealth structure in society writ large. I just find it ironic. It's like people are pulling out the fiat money to go into a hard asset that is volatile, but overall has proved to be very resilient, Bitcoin. I know a lot of them are gambling and other stuff in crypto. That's a different conversation, these altcoins. But when we're talking about Bitcoin, it is ironic that people are taking out their fiat currency, their dirty fiat currency that's constantly being devalued, and they're going, fuck it, I might as well put it into gambling, and they don't know, but they're actually putting it into what's an ultra hard asset, a stock to flow ratio that's better than gold. I find this ironic, though.
Research, another government agency, found a link between crypto holdings and home and auto loans, an indication that low-income households are using crypto gains to take out larger mortgages and finance more expensive cars, situation that, again, could lead to disaster in the event of another crypto crash. In previous
we're saying that they're winning so hard, they're taking out loans. This is crazy. Like, part of a report is saying crypto has won so hard and done so well that it's become so big that it's become a liability, and we need to protect ourselves from it. It's like, no, don't run away from it. Maybe embrace it. The whole reason why there's so many exchanges in the Bahamas, Mt. Gox out of Japan, they're just crashing. It's because it's not regulated properly. It's not regulated properly because it's been treated like a pariah. The entire system's been treated like a pariah. So I think we need to end this. We need to do the opposite of what she's saying to some degree to resolve some of the issues. Like, you can't tell me both that crypto's a disgusting place where it's just the lowest of the low and it's all gambling, and at the same time deny that it can be institutionalized and it can be regulated and legitimized.
Downturns, that damage was pretty relatively limited, relatively contained to just a few uniquely vulnerable banks and, of course, the crypto holders themselves. Next times, it could be much more like the cascade effect that we all lived through back in 2008. And contrary to the libertarian propaganda, the crypto industry's goal in Washington is to join the big Wall Street players in being too big to fail. They look set to get their wish based on Trump administration picks. SEC chair currently is Gary Gensler. He's been serious about regulating crypto. Well, he is out. Instead, Trump has picked.
He's been serious about regulating it. He's been serious about suing everyone, sending everyone's whales notices. The crypto industry doesn't even know why they're getting sued half the time. They've been trying to have conversations with the SEC for years and years and years, and they've just been denied, and then they're just getting randomly sued. And by the way, they've lost all their the SEC has famously lost all their lawsuits. The biggest one, Ripple, they basically destroyed the project since 2018. It didn't even have a proper bull run at all in 2021, like every other coin, because it was being sued. It was so heavily repressed by the FUD. And after millions and millions of dollars of a 4-year lawsuit, maybe a 6-year lawsuit, they came out of it and they won. They won. The judge was saying this is unconstitutional. What the SEC is trying to do, the demands that they have for these tokens, when they're clearly not the type of things that the SEC has regulatory authority over, they lost. The SEC has lost basically all of its lawsuits. I don't even know of a major one that it's won. You know, CZ stepped down and he went to jail for a bit in Binance, and I'm sure it's for good reason. But overall, fundamentally suing these projects, suing these tokens, suing these exchanges hasn't worked. And that's because there's legally not a precedence to do it. There's actually not a sound foundation to sue these guys.
A crypto booster who blamed U.S. regulators.
From what I understand. Again, the ones like FTX, the ones like Luna, Terra, the ones who are reckless, again, because they're unregulated, yes, of course, they're criminals. And there's many criminals in crypto. I'm just saying some of what I understand to be better actors like Kraken, like Coinbase, who see crypto as their golden goose, who actually view it as a legitimate thing. Ripple Labs, Chainlink, obviously Bitcoin, Ethereum Foundation, these actors in the space overall believe that the space will keep growing, I think. And I think that a lot of them have been sued and been threatened by the SEC, and they're not even sure why. I mean, they know why. You're responsible for doing coin offerings and for selling security, and they're like, well, what do you want us to do? This is the nature of this decentralized network that we've built now, is that people can do these things. They can create on it as they'd like.
for FTX's collapse instead of, brazen fraud. For Treasury, Trump picked Howard Lutnick. He's another crypto-friendly type whose firm has been a leader in allowing clients to use Bitcoin as collateral for loans. And Trump's AI and crypto czar, David Sachs, is part of the PayPal mafia, who believes that crypto will fulfill PayPal's desire to create the, quote, new world currency. Strange goal, I would say, for an administration that is supposed to be America first. And indeed, the
And again, she says that, like, I just want to say, this is America first. If USDT and USDC cement their place, US stablecoins cement their place as in this industry that could potentially become massive and global. It already has to some extent, to be fair, but in the next 15 years, it could get much more. It could go to zero as well, but it could become much more than what it is right now. If US dollar secures its place, which is backed by purchasing of US treasuries, that is an amazing cash cow, the golden goose for America. It is America first. And I'm in Canada here, and it's sad. It's sad in a way that America's it just happens to be positioned now because of its position after World War II to take full advantage of this. And in my opinion, they'd be fools not to.
The use case that actually makes the most sense to me for a crypto reserve is not for the US, but for countries around the world who would like to undermine US dollar hegemony and evade sanctions. In fact, that is exactly what is fueling Putin's current interest in Bitcoin and is the concern Trump was gesturing at when he originally called crypto a scam to undermine the dollar. But for us, there seems to be nothing resembling a reasonable rationale. It's just all a smash and grab operation to loot the public purse.
She doesn't understand. Like, the point that I just said was exactly the reason why America should. There's 2 points. First, Bitcoin's gone up astoundingly, like no other asset has, and if it continues to go up, it very well could pay off the entire or most of the majority of the U.S. Sovereign state debt. That's one thing, and that is a gamble, but it's a calculated gamble, I would say, with data backing it. It's not a surefire thing, but you can spend under $1 trillion in order to try to get $30 trillion. The risk to reward is insane on that. The second, again, is the cementing of U.S. stablecoins as the backbone of this entire industry. Yes, what you're saying about Putin, it is a workaround. It is a system that is not controlled by nation states. But this is in favor of liberty and freedom, in a way, of true property ownership of individuals to move their money as they would like. And yes, it will be used by bad actors. And this is the problem with free speech writ large. Not free speech for me and not for you, not for some, not for the few. It's for everyone, and they can use it as they'd like. This network is also for everyone to use as they'd like. But again, if you have the stablecoin network and the innovation coming from America, they can cement their place in it. This is if you look at it from the Bitcoin perspective, this is an undeniable transition. So you're going to go through it. It's happening already, whether you like it or not. If America tries to outlaw it or not, then they will leave it up to the BRICS nations to own it, to dominate it, and to innovate around it. There's no other choice. You either go with it and try to do the best you can to build out your stake in the new future, or you get left behind. But of course, these people who are writing reports like this on Breaking Points, they haven't done this. They're not sympathizing with these arguments to react to these arguments. I understand you might understand what I'm saying and go, I don't think that at all. But you have to at least entertain what I'm saying in this kind of piece. Well, these people think this. If you just say, no, it's a scam, it's useless, it's fiat currency is much better. Everyone who's in crypto doesn't believe, it's so insincere to the whole state of crypto. And again, that viewpoint does not at all help explain why it's gone from pennies to 100,000, whereas my viewpoint helps explain why it's gone to pennies from 100,000, because there's something fundamentally happening here in crypto. It's actually solving millennia-old's problem when it comes to trust, ownership of property, money, the issuer of money, who owns the public ledger, and basically working together in a decentralized way, and having your own autonomy over your finances. Not connected to the state, not connected to economic or quantitative easing or tightening that can affect the job market. You can lose your job, assets are going up, you don't know why. You're in this system where things are changing constantly and you're not in control of any of it. We weren't always on this system either. We had a gold system before. It has its flaws, it had inflation, but this fiat system is totally beyond the pale now. We're in a new dimension now with this kind of stuff. And that's why we're seeing this fragility in our markets. Every 10 years, we're going to have basically a major crash and a reset, because the fiat system is not set up to minimize a risk. It is set up to maximize risk.
Purse and further enrich the already wealthy. So, Sagar, strategic Bitcoin reserve, pro or con?
Well, as one of those holders. Hey guys, if you want to see what I had to say to Krystal's monologue, not just this one, all of them, go.
I would love to hear, because I know Sagar is more sympathetic to crypto, but he understands it more. This is the issue too. So Once again, it was a long video. I said my piece. I have to take a sip of water now. But I hope that that Krystal, look, in a way, Kyle, Krystal, love them, bless their hearts. I think that they're well informed people and they're passionate people. But these people simply haven't done the research that is required as a requisite to engage in this conversation in a meaningful, substantive way. You can make a flashy video, you can get all angry, you can agree with all these points from years and years ago, all this basically fear, uncertainty, and doubt causing media. But if you aren't basing it on reality, if you're not checking and seeing like, hey, this was the same thing that was said in 2016, but Bitcoin's grown substantially, like in terms of the amount of users, the amount of wallets, the price action, the institutionalization, like, oh, maybe we've missed something. If you just keep saying the greater fool's theory, which has been around since 2011, since the first bull run and crash, you're simply resistant to changes in new data. You can make your point. We don't like Trump. Trump's going to lead us to disaster. You can make it all. I'm just saying, research it and look at what the crypto and the Bitcoin community is saying and what their explanation is for this price action. Weigh that out with what you think is happening, the greater fool's theory, but then engage with the arguments both as a greater fool's theory as well as a pro crypto, like a crypto positive sentiment, and attack them from there. Because you're speaking only to people who already agree with you when you assume the greater fool's theory. So I think they can do better. I love breaking points, and I think they're great, and I hope that they do better. And that's it for Satoshi Chain. Thank you very much for watching, and like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. Thank you. Bye.